Addiction doesn't just destroy the person using it, it tears through everyone around them. Getting to know Michael's story helps you understand how vital it is to protect the people you love from the traps that fake friendships can set. Today, you're going to see a life lesson that shows just how far a person can fall, and how still, somehow, they can find their way back up. Michael had money, a loving wife, and professional success, but he was sinking under cocaine and alcohol. When everything seemed lost, one simple choice became the turning point. This story will move you and show you that hope can arise even in the darkest places. And more than that, it brings awareness so we can guide the people we care about, helping them avoid situations like this, ones that could have been prevented with the right warning at the right time. Michael looked like he'd won the game. You'd look at him and see confidence, a high-paying job, a new car in the garage, trips planned months ahead, a smile ready for photos. At home, Pamela kept things running smoothly. They talked about renovations, a stable future, maybe kids, one day. It was a life that inspired trust, even in the little things. But there was one detail almost no one noticed. The same drive that made him go above and beyond at work also fueled a habit that started as a joke and became a daily ritual: drug use. He told himself it was control, that it was just to shut his mind off. It sounded convincing, to everyone listening, and to him too. Michael's story is a powerful reminder of how choices can change destinies. This channel is new, created to bring you intense, emotional, meaningful stories that touch your heart and strengthen your mind, so you never forget the value of taking care of yourself and the people beside you. Subscribe now and walk this journey with us. It all started with gatherings after work. Loud music, laughter, promises that it would only be for a little while. That night, he realized the guilt faded for a few minutes, and his usual racing thoughts, full of pressure and bad memories, got quieter. The relief was quick, but strong. Days later, he did it again. And again. His inner voice stuck to the same script: I deserve this, I can handle it, it's fine. Before he knew it, he was carrying a small case in his bag, telling himself he needed it to keep his energy up. The trick worked for hours, but came with a cost later on. The first lies were small. He'd say he was stepping out to handle something work-related and disappear for half an hour. He'd come back speaking faster, overflowing with ideas, promising big goals. Pamela found it odd, but he always had an answer: tight deadlines, pressure, a demanding client. At a family birthday party, he slipped into the bathroom, just for a second, and came back euphoric, telling awful jokes and hugging everyone. Forced laughter filled the room, that strange tension hanging in the air that most people pretend not to notice just to avoid conflict. In his head, though, it was proof it was working. Nobody notices. That's what he whispered to himself before sleep. Physical signs began showing up like quiet warnings. Sudden nosebleeds, a persistent ache in the same spot, nights spent wide awake with his mind buzzing like it was plugged into an invisible outlet. To make up for it, he invented health routines that lasted a few days at most. He bought vitamins, downloaded a meditation app, scheduled a doctor's appointment, and canceled it the day before. He told Pamela it was just exhaustion, that he was pushing himself too hard. She believed him part of the time, doubted him the rest. A marriage is built on questions you sometimes avoid asking, because you're afraid of the answer. There was one moment that should have been a red flag, though he treated it like yellow. One Friday, before meeting up with friends, he promised himself he'd stay clean for 7 days. He wrote the promise on a note in his phone and left it open on the screen, like the act itself would give him strength. 2 hours later, he was in the hotel room where the group was gathering for a party, staring at the mirror, repeating excuses. Just today, this week's been rough. He did exactly what he swore he wouldn't. He came home Saturday afternoon, took a shower, tossed his clothes in the washer, and went grocery shopping with Pamela like nothing had happened. In the cold aisle, she asked if he was okay. He answered, "Just tired," and smiled. At work, his performance stayed strong, which reinforced the illusion that he was still in control. He delivered projects, hit targets, got praise. External recognition became validation for his internal behavior. Every positive result felt like proof the situation was under control. When his body protested, he had tricks: cold water on his face, strong coffee, gum to mask that metallic taste that wouldn't go away. Slowly, the line between weekend and Tuesday afternoon disappeared. What used to be scheduled now slipped into any empty moment. One Sunday night, while Pamela picked a movie, Michael said he needed to check an urgent email. He went to his office, closed the door, opened the message, and deleted it without reading. The urgent thing was something else. 15 minutes later, he came back energetic, talking too much, suggesting pizza, dessert, plans for a trip. Pamela smiled, but her eyes searched for consistency. She knew his moods. Something here didn't fit. The movie played, lines passed, and a heavy silence settled between scenes. The night ended with quick kisses and promises for the week ahead. For her, it left a discomfort. For him, certainty: he was lying well. His moral justifications kept evolving too. Michael saw himself as someone carrying burdens no one else could handle. He convinced himself that to deal with painful memories and long-standing anxiety, he needed a shortcut. That shortcut became a rule. When guilt hit, he filled himself with good intentions: exercise more, sleep earlier, slow down. He planned detailed changes in notebooks that ended up forgotten in drawers. Monday came, and he slipped back into routine. Thursday rolled around, and the old excuse returned: just today. And between one promise and the next, life kept running on autopilot: meetings, dinners, gifts for Pamela, posts on special dates. Everything looked fine, but inside, a crack was growing wider. You've probably seen something like this before: someone who shines on the outside but is constantly begging their own mind for mercy. With Michael, that plea became a method. Every step toward momentary relief only made room for more hunger for it. And he kept going, convinced he had control, that no one would get hurt, that everything would fall back into place. For now, appearances held the story together. But the truth was already knocking at the door, even if he chose to pretend it was just the wind. Pamela always believed love could save someone. But over time, she realized she didn't have the strength to compete with addiction. She watched her husband pull away day by day, making up excuses, coming home with a distant look and energy that swung wildly between exaggerated euphoria and crushing exhaustion. The conversations that once revolved around dreams of the future turned into short exchanges full of automatic replies. It was as if Michael had built an invisible wall. Pamela tried to cross it, but every time, she met silence or irritation. Until one day, exhausted, she decided to leave. She packed quietly, left a short note on the kitchen table, and walked out. To Michael, this abandonment should have been the final warning, but instead, it became fuel for the abyss. He interpreted her loss as justification. He thought, if I've already lost her love, why stop now? That's when his use skyrocketed. What had once felt like a hidden luxury became a survival ritual. 7-8 grams a day. A fortune, nearly $15,000 a month, vanishing down the drain in search of fleeting numbness. The money wasn't enough anymore, so he started mortgaging watches, selling collectible pieces, fabricating stories to get advances. Every lie came with a convincing excuse. He believed his own versions so deeply, he even convinced close family members. His body was screaming. Sudden nosebleed sent him running to the bathroom, drenching his face, sucking water in desperate attempts to clear his nasal passages. At night, the stained pillow proved things were spiraling out of control. Still, he hid it. Pamela wasn't there to confront him anymore, and everyone around him, even when they noticed signs, chose not to bring it up. Michael took advantage of that silence. For every question, he had a ready answer. He said work pressure was unbearable, that he needed coffee and energy drinks to cope, that stress explained everything. But the truth was darker, he was already living for his next dose. At work, his performance stayed strong. He hit targets, closed deals, projected confidence. It was as if the drug had become a high-revving engine, letting him deliver beyond expectations. But there was a cost. That excess energy quickly turned into impulsivity. And it was that impulsivity that opened the door to his professional downfall. He wasn't caught because of the powder hidden in bathrooms or motels, he was fired because of affairs with coworkers. Late-night conversations, secret meetings, messages that fell into the wrong hands. The scandal spread fast, and the termination came as a shock. He lost his job not because of what he was doing in private, but because of choices made in the heat of euphoria. And that irony cut deeper than anything else. Losing his job didn't mean a pause, it intensified his descent. Without a fixed routine, without his wife, without employment, Michael had nothing but time to bury himself deeper in his habit. Every morning brought a promise to cut back. Every night, the same cycle of excess. He lived in short loops, waking up drained, swearing to change, spending hours chasing energy, then collapsing with his body trembling and his mind racing. The reflection in the mirror no longer showed the man in the suit and smile. It showed a hollow face, red eyes, and an expression of emptiness. By this point, even his closest friends began pulling away. Invitations to parties disappeared, calls grew fewer, family dinners became awkward. Addiction hadn't just taken his wife and his job, it had stripped away the social circle that once supported him. Now, there was only him and his dependence. With every line snorted, he believed he was filling the hole left by his losses. But in truth, he was only making the void bigger. When Michael finally decided to try quitting, he realized he had no idea what true withdrawal really meant. The first night without cocaine was torture. His body shook uncontrollably, his head throbbed like it might burst, his heart raced erratically. He threw himself onto the bed, rolling from side to side, unable to keep his eyes closed for more than a few minutes. Sweat poured out without any physical effort, and every negative thought multiplied, as if his mind were under attack by memories he'd spent years trying to push deep underground. The days that followed were even worse. The energy that used to keep him going vanished completely. Getting out of bed was a battle. He'd look at his phone, unanswered messages, bills piling up, and just couldn't find the strength to do anything. The emptiness was total. Nothing had color anymore. Nothing had meaning. Foods he once loved tasted like nothing. Songs that used to lift his spirits now sounded like distant noise. Cocaine had hijacked his ability to feel pleasure, and left him drifting, completely adrift. It was in this state that he got the news: his father had passed away, just 3 weeks after his attempt at sobriety. The impact was devastating. Grief came crashing over him like a heavy wave, sweeping away the last scraps of energy he had left. Michael felt like he hadn't just lost his father, he'd lost every anchor that might have helped him hold on. It felt as if the whole world had collapsed all at once. One quiet afternoon, overwhelmed by grief, withdrawal, and despair, he went to the garage. He found a rope, tied it to a hook, and stared at the empty space in front of him. This was the moment everything seemed ready to end. His thoughts weren't about drugs anymore, or Pamela, or work. They were only about peace. The idea of finally silencing that pain felt logical, even inviting. As he held the rope, something inside him wavered between surrender and a quiet, muffled plea for help. In that instant, he remembered his grandfather, a man who had always been there during his childhood, steady and simple, giving him a sense of safety. The impulse came without warning. He dropped the rope, ran to his phone, and dialed the number. When he heard his grandfather's voice on the other end, the tears came instantly. With a shaky voice, he confessed he was lost, that he just didn't have the strength anymore. That call didn't bring immediate relief, but it sparked something. For the first time in years, Michael had clearly admitted he couldn't keep going alone. And in that moment, a new possibility opened up, asking for help instead of giving in. The conversation with his grandfather was the first real step toward change. Michael wasn't met with judgment or blame. He heard just one short sentence: "You don't have to carry this alone." Those words echoed through him like a reminder that there was still a way out. From then on, the journey was hard, full of falls and relapses, but also discoveries. He dove into therapy, exposed old wounds he'd never addressed, and learned to see that cocaine wasn't the real problem, it was just the crutch he used to escape the pain. Each therapy session, Michael let go of another piece of the armor he'd built around himself. He realized the perfect life he showed everyone had always been a mask. Behind it was a wounded, lonely, frightened man trying simply to survive. That awareness didn't free him right away, but it opened the door to real transformation. For the first time, he began looking at himself honestly, without pretense. It was during this process that he got the idea to share his story publicly. Michael knew thousands of people were trapped the way he had been, ashamed to admit their addiction, convinced they were utterly alone. He started making videos, writing personal accounts, opening up on social media. Instead of hiding his scars, he turned each one into a warning for others. Even though he lost millions of followers when the truth stopped being glamorous and became raw and real, he found something far more valuable: the peace of no longer having to pretend. He still faced crises. He still felt the weight of anxiety. But he learned that healing doesn't mean perfection. Healing means keeping going even when you're broken. It means learning to give meaning to your suffering, not erasing it. Michael discovered that pain can become purpose when you have the courage to face it head-on. Today, Michael is a top executive at a major company. What his journey teaches us is simple, but profound: there's no shame in being hurt. True courage lies in reaching out for support. Running away might seem easier, but it's in accepting vulnerability that life finds room to bloom again. Michael lost money, his marriage, his reputation. But by acknowledging his fragility, he gained something no addiction could ever offer: the chance to start over in peace. He learned that asking for help isn't a sign of weakness, it's the first step toward rebuilding what seemed lost forever. His story reminds us that every failure hides a seed of rebirth. Falling doesn't define the end of the story, it's just the chance to write a stronger, more human, more truthful chapter. And the lesson that remains is this: being broken isn't the end. Pain can become a new beginning, if you have the courage to face the truth. Because true healing never comes from outside. It starts within, the moment you stop pretending and choose to rebuild yourself. True strength in life lies in recognizing our vulnerabilities. Michael's journey reminds us that every fall holds a lesson, and every wound can awaken courage. This channel is new, born to bring stories that inspire, move, and renew. If this message touched your heart, subscribe and share. In the next videos, you'll find more stories that can reignite hope and love, the kind that truly transform.